Hey, welcome to our Digital Voices webinar. This one on Black excellence in medicine, a conversation about diversity. Nobody better than my longtime friend and colleague, Dr. David Butler. And, a lot of times on Digital Voices, we tackle typical digital topics, which are really important: digital strategy, digital transformation, the voice of the patient, patient centricity, you name it, we've covered it. And probably our most popular webinars, as well as corresponding podcasts, have been on the topics of racism, because we're not afraid to talk about it, and it has to be talking about. And that's really my presupposition, is that there's a reason why it's our most popular topic, because we all know it's a problem we have to solve, and obviously solve globally. But our focus is more around health IT in our sphere of influence. It all meshes together, I know, but that's really why we do it. And we all know we have friends and colleagues who are still in denial that there's an issue. And so by talking about it, you get to hear firsthand, if you don't otherwise get to hear or see about it firsthand, what it's like. And that's really why we're doing this. So really quick introductions. We're going to introduce each other because we're brothers, and we know each other. Dave and I have known each other for probably a decade when we count everything, but we really bonded in New York City, where we shared an office at New York City Health and Hospitals. We had a tremendous challenge before us there, and working together as a team, and we had other very important people working with us as well. But when you share an office with someone, you get to really know them. And then we would commiserate after hours somewhere in New York City, and really got to know one another. We got to know families, and we celebrated, the success actually of our children. David, oftentimes, they were going through high school graduation and college, and some of our kids had the same passion in film. But anyways, Dave's great. He was so great that when I went to the Cleveland Clinic, I called Dave up and said, Dave, we need some help here. We were trying to really establish a strong CMIO program. And Dave came in and helped establish that program and helped mentor our CMIO. And so it was really cool. Plus, he likes Jay-Z. So right there is another connection. And he's just a deep person. And one of his mantras or favorite sayings, which I really respect, is give grace and receive grace. So Dave, I'll let you introduce me.
Awesome. Well, Ed Marx is, next slide. No, Ed Marx has been somebody that I've heard about for what, 15, 20 years maybe. And I always say, like, when I hear about Ed, it's almost like, if I guess if informatics had a kind of a class favorite, if this was high school, like, who is that big? Who's the guy? Who is this Ed Marx class favorite guy? So ultimately, it was an honor for me to kind of, Ed called me over to work with him in New York City Health and Hospitals. That's when we really bonded. And I realized he was a lot more than just informatics. Not only the leader, speaker, author, I mean, a good guy, tango dancer, and random all kind of stuff that I was like this Renaissance man. And I was like, okay, I need to kind of be like him a little bit, maybe. And so we clicked, we bonded, not only on a personal level, professional level, and now even on this now, on like these tough topics, racism. I just want to say thanks, Ed, for doing everything you've been doing, and even the books you write, the run. I mean, this guy runs, man. I'm a doctor. I tell people to run. I can't do it, but that's cool. Keep running, Ed, and everybody listening, make sure you guys exercise, okay? All right. Anyway.
That's our PSA. That's our public service announcement.
PSA, yeah. So anyway, Ed, I want to thank you for having me on, though, just to talk about this. I'm no expert. I'm just a black man, grew up in the South, and now live out in California. And so I got a little bit of experience on both sides of this. So I hope I can share some things that make sense.
Yeah, I have no doubt that you will. So we are live, and we do live for two reasons. One is it's just kind of exciting because you never know what's going to happen, with your home network or something outside. But two is we want to be interactive. That's the real reason. So you can enter questions, comments on the chat function, and then I'll moderate those. So we really do answer about everything that comes through. So don't feel like you're wasting your time. Go ahead and put something out there, and I will try and get to it. We have a sort of a loosely defined way that we want to have this chat today. It's basically talk about, hey, there is a problem, and then what can we do? So very action oriented. But that's it. Otherwise, it's unscripted. So please throw questions, comments in there, and we're going to address it. So I'm going to start it off.
And if it's anything, because we're live, there may be a question you ask. I'll be the first to say, that is a great question. Next question.
Yeah.
I may not answer, or I may not feel like you may not be appropriate to comment on live,
Yeah.
and maybe though this is what it is, so we're cool like that. And
Yeah. Or I'll say, I'm going to let Dave answer that.
and I'm gonna say, Ed, you got it. And when that happens, we just move on. Yeah. Wait, first of all, Ed, what's that shirt you got? And you always have these interesting t-shirts on. What is that? What is that
So
one?
it's Queen.
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 Okay.
I try to wear a music shirt, and
That's
so I
okay.
love
Got
Queen.
it.
Hey, you
Love it.
described a moment to me when, and it's happened to you more than once. So I want to start off this way because people, as I said, don't think it's an issue. You describe a moment where you're a doctor and you're seeing patients, and the patient's already in the room. They've already been triaged. They're waiting for the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
In comes Dr. David Butler,
Mm-hmm.
very top of his game as in medicine, and the reaction is a long pause
A long
as
pause.
the white patient starts thinking about, wait a second, who are you? A doctor? Probably thinking maybe. Oh, you are the doctor. Oh, and it's not something that your counterpart that might be white, or if you were seeing a black patient, would think about. So it's real, right? You've had those sort of situations.
Every day, and that would just happen. I mean, those are things that black doctors, black nurses, black professionals we encounter every day. So it's not just a Dave Butler thing. And I think it's basically human to categorize things anyway. I mean, just when I first want to talk humans, you hear whatever you're indoctrinated to, whatever you're exposed to, that's what you expect, right? So when we see something that we don't expect, which is a unconscious bias, right?
Yeah.
Can be a prejudice even. So I want to make sure we take some of the weight off folks who said, I'm not racist, I'm not this, I'm not that, because even black families have had the pause because we have not been exposed to black doctors in this, and what it is. And so, yeah, I go in the room, they have this kind of pause, and I'm thinking, you know what the pause is. It's a very brief pause. You just see the face as a pause, and we just kind of have to go past it now, or quickly ramp up and make sure that we sound and present so professional and so good that we quickly can make them feel comfortable that I know what I'm doing. I can take care of your little baby over there that's turning blue while you're pausing to look at me. So you can look at the blackness, or we could deal with the blue baby. Which one we want to do? So it's kind of fun. I guess over the years I've just kind of taken those microaggressions, as they call them. They're unintentional, but they're microaggressions, like little mosquito bites. And after a while, after like the 1,000th mosquito bite, you may lose it a little bit. You're like, look, and then they say, oh my God, all I said was you, Dr. Butler. But like, well, yeah, but it was the 1,000th time it happened. That's all, So, like that one straw that broke the camel's back, not the whole bale of hay. And that's why they call it the straw. And so I think that's what we as African Americans deal with every day. And we got to deal with it. It's what it is. Some people call it a black tax for being in the realm of, white folks. So
Yeah. I know one woman that we both love, other than our wives, because she's such a great leader, Myra Davis. She's awesome, and she's been a guest before too. Yeah, and she tells it from a CIO point of view. You're sharing with us a clinical point of view, but it's the real deal. It's something that's really out there. And Dave, I like your point on unconscious bias, because yeah, I believe that the majority of individuals don't come into this like with a conscious bias, like I am prejudiced and I'm going to do whatever I'm going to stick to that, and I don't want to intermingle or anything like that. But I think the majority of us have an unconscious bias. I know I do, and I catch myself all the time, and I've been working at it for a while.
Yeah, we all have it. We all have it, and I think it's once we understand that we have it, and when someone approaches us with it, almost like it's okay to lean into that versus throw your defenses up, right? And that's what happens a lot. So when someone say, "Oh, you're racist," no, I'm not, and yada yada, I share a story. My mom's gonna kill me on this one, right? I'm gonna say it. All right, I grew up in the South, small town. And and blacks, and it was the 80s, but the blacks lived on this side, South Marlin, and the whites lived on that side. It's what it was. The swimming pools on the white side, the baseball diamond on the white side, country club white side, just what it was, right? And I didn't, as growing up in it, just didn't know it was normal, right? But it was just my mother wanted to protect me, and all the parents wanted to protect me from harm, as any parent would. So just growing up, she was like, nope, you can't do that, can't go over there, don't do this, can't, can I go over so and so's house? I said, no, you can't go over there. I get a birthday invitation, and I came home excited, and I gave it to my mom. I said, hey, I got invited to a sleepover party at my friend's house, my white friend's second grade. I remember this vividly. She said,
Yeah.
she looked at it and she said, you can't go over to that little white boy's house. If something comes up missing, they're gonna blame you. Now, mom's gonna be mad at that because she may not remember that, but she said in one of those mother voices that when she used the voice, you already know it's no negotiation. So I just get back on my bike and rode away. That was it. That's a form of, right, bias, prejudice, things like that, that she did it to protect me, to protect the thing that she loved, right? So she was, quote, racist because she would love me, right? And she's seen something that I hadn't, right? And you can see how this is propagated. And so I thought that was always an interesting example. I shared with her that I didn't say that. I said, Mom, it's okay. You didn't say that. Or maybe, okay, you didn't say it. But the thing is that I knew her intent. I knew what all mothers, all fathers, everyone wants to protect their babies, right? And that's what we're seeing today with the police brutality and all this other stuff. They want to protect their babies. And to do that, sometimes there are methods that we use that may propagate some of the prejudices, both sides.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And then as I tell my white friends that story, they then throw their cards on the table. Oh my God, I couldn't come over to your house either because I'm like, I knew it. So yeah.
And we have the power to break it. People like you and I and everyone listening, we can break it. And that's really, we're going to try to be practical. We'll sort of end on a lot of practice, but just right here, I think that as buddies, as friends, as work colleagues, you have to call it out. I think you have to, when you see it, and even the unconscious stuff, especially because, that's the harder one actually to deal with than the conscious bias. That's obvious, and you can do stuff about it. It's the unconscious. And I think we have an obligation to each other, David. And I know you would call me out on something, and I would feel free to call you out as well. So when you see it, you gotta say something.
Yeah, no, I think Martin Luther King had a saying. I think this was when, and I'm not a history major or anything like that, but I like to read things like that. And I'm just a little old doctor pushing aspirin, and but I kind of read a little bit. And Martin Luther King said something that was really profound. I took a class called History of Nonviolence in college, and I remember this. He said something like, "It's not the KK Clay or those folks that are really the far extremists that we really are as concerned about. I'll say it's the white moderates, meaning the white people that know something is wrong and they know it, they feel it, and they're not with it, but they will not speak up. It's called the white moderates." He said they have a bigger impact to change the world than anyone else, right? And I thought that was so deep. And so I think now they're using the term anti-racism. Anti-racism means it's not just good enough to say like, oh my God, I wouldn't do that ever. I wouldn't do that ever. Well, that's fine, but that's not good enough. Let's go a little bit further. Will you represent me, or will you represent us when I'm not around with your friends? Now you're putting some stake in the game, right? And that's where we almost have to go. We got to go there. And that's what the literature's saying. And the allyship, like you're saying, this is where allyship, all these new words are coming up. I'm learning from my wife mainly, but allyship is like, that's what it's called, ally, being an ally, And to be a true ally is really difficult because you may have to give up something,
Yeah. In our family, we have like a buzzer that we make with ourselves, like man, something like that. And so when someone makes a statement, it doesn't have to be about race. There's a lot of different types of biases. Could be about people's weight, about how tall they are, whatever, what country they're from. We just do the and it's amazing, because it's made in a joking way, but also it's like, hey, that's wrong. And so I love it. I love when friends, in a gentle way, which works best for me, say, hey, Ed, when you say that, when you use those words, when you act like that, when you look like that, when certain people walk in the room or whatever it might be, behaviors, physical or verbal, I want to grow as a human, and so I want that feedback, and I know you're the same, Dave. You're built that way.
Definitely.
The concept of allyship. So we have 15 minutes left. This time goes by so fast. We're interested in your questions or comments, so please engage with us. That's why we're live, and we're pretty easy, chill people, and so please engage. Let's talk about trigger words.
Trigger words.
Can I start with a couple and let you react to them?
Start with a couple and I'll react violently. Go.
You already actually mentioned one. If you call someone out as a racist, if you call me, that just, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah,
you know.
that's
But
it.
here's critical race theory.
Critical race theory. That's an interesting thing that's buzzing around different state legislatures now. Wow, you hit a big one. I honestly, I had to really read up on it because I kept seeing it pop up. What is this? What is this? But I think what I'm figuring out is it's a smooth little way to slide in things that we don't know what it is. Like, and I'm like, wait, I'm a doctor. I'm pretty educated. I got my daughter and my wife's a PhD, and I don't know that word. So I'm trying to think, how does the rest of the world know that word and know how to respond to it? Basically, it's saying like the race and law has been connected throughout the history of the U.S., tied to white supremacy, and the policies and things laws that were made maybe intentional, maybe not intentional. I don't know all the details, so I'm not that guy. But that they're there and it's producing this outcome every time it produces this outcome, right? And I think Edward Deming said that anytime you get, it's like, what is, the saying that says about the outcome you get, your system is perfectly designed to give it to you. Whatever that is. So I think it ties into that, where when you hear systemic racism, like, oh, it's systemic racism. No, the United States does not have systemic racism. Well, I don't think folks understand. I want to believe they don't understand the words, what it means, right?
Yeah.
But it just means that there are certain things on the books that's been on the books that have had this group to be over here and less opportunities, and this group to stay here with more opportunities. And in America, it just so happened that was a very black and white world. As America's built, American history is about the history of America, slavery, suppression, all the good and the bad stories of America should be in the history books, right? We shouldn't start picking apart and whitewashing and making things, teach the history, teach what it is, and then let the students critically think through it and not, put teachers in jail if they teach this. That's kind of what's going on. So critical race theory, I think that's one of those interesting terms that you hear. It's just saying they're trying to get the racism stuff and anything that's disparaging in the U.S. History out of those books. And I feel like that's not cool, but yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about as a family, and I have a fairly diverse family, a lot of Indian culture and first generation, and then we have a dreamer as part of our family, from Mexico. And we were just talking about it. So I think the important thing is to have the dialogue, talk about it. You don't have to necessarily agree, but again, I always say, all right, whatever, but what are you doing, right? What is Ed Marx doing? What is David Butler doing to, to bring justice and in our sphere of influence and those sort of things. Before we go on, we were going to do some, what do we call it, like freestyle. Any other like hard topics, like on this whole topic of racism, and especially, we are healthcare tech, and if there's anything, or anything related to that, like we talk about sometimes the hiring,
Hiring, that can be systemic as well. When I say systemic, in a big corporation that may have started 50 years ago, there may be something on the books that they weren't fully aware of the outcome that they keep getting. So yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, just, if you look at healthcare tech teams, I think Blacks are highly underrepresented.
Definitely.
And that's an area that we can all, make sure that we apply, whatever the term you want to use, justice or equality, equal opportunity. Yeah, we can do stuff, and it just makes me mad because, and I know I don't want to tell too many personal examples because I might be an outlier, but like I just think about our team, David, in New York City. I was the only white person, and that was maybe the best team I've ever been on. So it makes no sense to me why we don't all have a very diverse leadership teams.
Yeah, and now America's capitalist. That's just what it is. Now I have to let's be realistic about stuff. Money moves to America, right? That's how it works, right? And in those instances when corporations or small companies, whatever, feel that hiring a certain person, could be a woman, okay? It could be a African American, Indian, you name it. Hiring any type of person could negatively affect their bottom line. Their subconscious is saying, protect my money, right? And so they may go with another candidate, right? But if you were to, I would say this, like if you were to put them in a lie detector test, say, did you do this intentionally? No, that thing wouldn't even blip because it's so unconscious, right? And so I think that's where we really have to dig into. And the Kendi, what is it? Ibrahim Kendi, the leader in anti-racist thought right now, he equates it to a cancer. So this is a medical now. He said racism is like a cancer. It's stage 4, meaning when it's stage 4, it's spread, it's metastatic, right? Because he's been through cancer, so he understands it. But as a doctor, exactly, it's like a cancer. Now, there's a weird term, and my physician colleagues out there listening are going to know this term. There's a term called a paraneoplastic syndrome. Okay, this is a big word for you may have a cancer lurking below, but you have physical signs out here that you're going to the doctor for, right?
Yeah.
Now we're trained on how they look and how they present. You could have an ulcer or some kind of thing on your face that just keeps bothering you, so you keep treating this. Well, those are your little like the police brutality. Those are just the little things that are coming out, or the lack of equity, inclusion, diversity, and cooperation. That's what those are, paraneoplastic syndromes in America. The real problem, though, is that cancer that's in there that we have to get in with either a knife surgery, get it out, or systemic chemotherapy, right? So
Yeah.
I feel like that is a really deep, dope analogy for what this is. It's a cancer. As long as that racism's there, we're going to keep getting these, or white supremacy-based policies are there, we're going to keep getting these type of things popping up, and we're going to keep going to the doctor. Yeah, my left arm hurts. What is this? Okay, maybe try some ibuprofen. Okay, you'll try it. It'll go away for a minute. It's going to come up somewhere else, right? So that's just the way I think about it, and he dinged it so well. So he's a great author for anyone listening. Is that book, Anti-Racism, and also another book is called White. What is it? Oh, I'll get it to you. I'll get that book to you in a second. But yeah.
Yeah. Since we're talking about books, Blind Spots was really eye-opening for me, because again, I felt like I'm smart enough to know I have some prejudice. So I'm always like looking at myself or looking for others to provide me feedback. But I didn't think it was, a lot. So after I read Blind Spot, though, I was like, dang. And again, I'm talking about beyond race, just a lot of different areas. I was like, dang, I have a long ways to go. And so that's, so on a practical level on hiring, and then we're going to move on, is okay, it's great that you form committees. Everyone now has a diversity committee and all that kind of stuff. And I don't discount those, but I discount them if you haven't done anything, So a lot of people think we'll just set up a committee, or we'll just say, we'll put out a statement. CEO puts out a statement. We don't believe in racism, and that's great. But if it's not followed up with tangible evidence, when I look at your C-suite, going back to healthcare IT, when I look at my, as a CIO or chief digital officer, I look around my table. If everyone looks at like me, that's bad, and it's double bad because it's not going to be a very good team. Because you need that diversity in thought, in experience, in background, and then realize the patients that you serve are not all, white bald guys like myself. So it's obvious, but that's why we have to keep talking about it. All right. So what are some other practical things, David? In the past, what about direct engagement? What about people who don't? I don't want to lead the witness here, but I just want to get your perspective on what about people who don't interact much with the Black community? Is there, and not because they don't want to, but maybe because where they live.
They're in Montana.
Yeah. What should they? What do you recommend?
That's interesting, because I feel like one of the biggest I've experienced in my life is you must almost absorb yourself, or be open to absorb yourself in a culture for you to understand it and not fear something, right? And fear, that's what it is. Fear. That's why the news and things like that, they sell fear because we don't know it. So they'll put something like, oh my God. And then we start forming these opinions of things that we've never experienced. And so when we do experience them, there's fear first, because our brains are programmed to protect us, right? Hardwired, that's nature, deep brainstem stuff, right? So I think once they're aware of that, right? And then those folks that understand, like, they'll discount a lot of stuff they see on TV, like, oh my God, it can't be that bad. Oh my God, it can't be that bad. Of course it can't be that bad in your suburban nice neighborhood, or that has been redlined or whatever, where you are, that African Americans didn't migrate there after all the things like that, So I think that's the first thing, is be aware when you're discounting something first, right? That you haven't experienced, or that you don't know something about. I have to do the same thing. When I see global things happening, the Uyghurs in China or the Palestinian-Israel conflict, I don't have an opinion yet until I can read about it and learn about it. And, you know, like those are the type of things that refrain from saying something if you don't know. Meaning like those are, and that way you're not propagating something based on media, based on social media without your own experience, right? And I think those are some things that, first of all, and read about it, you know, go to credible sites, or like the book Me and White Supremacy is the book I was trying to find. Me and White Supremacy, or How to Be an Anti-Racist. Read those. Look at shows like The 13th, if you really, on Netflix, by Ava DuVernay. You know, really great show that talks about the history, the 13th Amendment. It goes all the way back from the 13th Amendment and brings it all the way back logically with very smart people talking. And it won a Peabody Award. It won Emmys, things like that. Go to credible sources. Don't go to those places that you Google and you find what you want to see. Like, I knew it right there. A guy in a basement made that site. I know him, whatever. So that's the first thing. I don't know if that helps, Ed, but yeah, that's education. I'll say education.
Yeah, someone also made a book recommendation thinking that maybe that's what you were alluding to, called Stamped from the Beginning.
Stamped from the Beginning, I heard of that one. That's a good one, yeah.
Ibram X. Kendi.
That's him. That's him. Ibram X. Kendi wrote that one. Stanford. He is the leader out there. He's really got some really powerful things. So if you guys can follow him on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, I think you'll get some little nuggets that'll kind of help you think a little different about stuff that I never had thought different about, to be quite honest.
Yeah. And I'm okay actually with looking at sources that are extreme, and I'll tell you why. So even if I completely disagree, because it's so extreme, either on the denial side or on the, you know, on the overstatement, maybe perhaps of an issue, is it going back to your point, Dave? You got to understand all the perspectives, and you'll learn from all of them. So I take a very open-minded approach to. I don't limit myself, right? It comes back to unconscious bias. If you're only watching one news channel, you know, as an example.
Yeah, and it's like, it's an effort though. It's mentally exhausting to unlearn and then relearn, right? And what we learned, I call it my 20s and 30s. That's how 20s and 30s, we learn a lot of stuff, and that can get hardwired. But when new information comes, if we're reluctant, whether you're in a professional, business, social, religious, any setting, when new information is presented, then you're like, no, I'm good. That's just not going to lead to something positive. Yeah. So.
No, that's good. So we're down to 2 minutes. We had another question regarding, you know, racism as a trigger word, and it really, I think the thought is it wasn't really, in the past anyways, if I'm understanding the comment question, you know, it wasn't really meant to be a trigger word. It was just, you know, a statement of fact that, you know, but I think the way that, you know, with the media on both sides, I don't take a side, has used it has become sort of a trigger word, you know, whether you're a racist or there's systemic racism. So we got them twisted a little bit.
And I think one thing, the biggest thing that I think everyone should take away, if you don't take away anything else from our discussion, if whoever's listening, racism, that ISM is the key. Ism, like capitalism, communism, socialism, racism, it means it's a system set up in place, right? Versus the word racist. Racist, it says you have biases, you have prejudices, you're racist against a certain set of people, gender, whatever. Schism means there's power in play that has set up to propagate a certain thing, like a white race being more superior. So when you say racism, that means you have to, Black people can't be we can't have racism because we're not in power, you know? So that's the thing, it's a power dynamic play when you hear the word racism. And I think that's something I had to learn. I realized, oh, I thought, you know, versus racist, but that's where like education, it's got to be taught in the schools. It's that way we can now have same dialogues across the table. You're really good at translating all this technical jargon into lay folks, you know, nursing, clinical, and all that. If you weren't, man, we'd be all over the place in those meetings, right? So I think it's the same thing.
All right, so Dave, this is gonna be really tough for you. We have 30 seconds left, and I still have one slide to say, hey, look what's coming up next. In 10 words or less, and I'm gonna do the same thing. Sum up, what's one thing, you know, one thing that someone can do to help themselves or help the situation?
admit to yourself that you have biases.
Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, I'm telling you, the people I run into, Dave, when they claim they have no bias, I almost give up on them. I go after the ones like myself that know I have a bias. It's like, help me get out of this funk. So yeah, that's good. And my
what's yours? What's your 10
words
words?
would be start hiring for diversity and have friends of diversity and hobbies of diversity.
I like
Those
it.
are easy, and you're gonna find out that we're all the same. And it's so cool, and it's a much richer experience. So that's my words. Hey, Dave, awesome. Thank you so much.
All right,
You're
thank you, Ed.
one of my besties, and I love you, and I really appreciate you.
Appreciate being.
So we do have some, it's hard to do like advertisement now. We have upcoming webinars. We do have this Digital Voices event. It's once or twice a year. It's amazing for chief digital officers and those interested in all things digital. Amazing guests right there. You see the speaker lineup. Amazing guests, CDOs from the industry as well as from the tech side, like head of Zoom healthcare. So really going to be great. Join us. Dave, we'll have to get you on there the next time and we'll talk some more. So thank you everyone for being part of our time today. Bye now.